Okay, so particle physics, huh? You guys really sent us a fascinating one this time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, fat jets for Light Higgs.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely not something you hear every day. So we're diving into, well, how scientists are trying to track down the elusive Higgs boson.
It's really more like now that we've found it,
Right.
this paper is diving into how we can study it.
Okay, so it's like we found this rare, I don't know, butterfly or something,
Hmm.
and now we have to figure out a way to watch it without, scaring it off or something.
Yeah, there you go. Except in this case, it's a particle that helps explain, well, why anything has mass.
Right, right. The Higgs. And that's kind of a big deal because without it, I mean, we'd all just be zipping around at the speed of light, right?
Exactly.
No atoms, no planets, no deep dives.
No, us.
So, okay, where did these fat jets come in? That seems to be like the big thing in this paper.
So imagine a gigantic microscope,
Okay.
but instead of shining light, it smashes particles together
Okay.
at crazy, crazy high speeds.
Right?
And that's basically the Large Hadron Collider, LHC. Now, picture a billion fireworks going off at once.
Wow.
That's kind of like what happens after those collisions.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in that chaos is our Higgs boson.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, how do you even begin to look for something that's so tiny?
That's where our fat jets come in.
Okay.
So a regular jet, that's like if we focus on just one spark from those fireworks we were picturing.
Okay.
A fat jet, now we're talking about looking at the whole explosion, the pattern, the energy. These are big clusters of particles, all moving together in this sort of unique fingerprint, you could say.
So instead of getting lost in the tiny details, you're looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. And this team, they think those fat jet fingerprints, they might be the key to actually finding the Higgs.
Yeah.
But it gets even cooler. So they're looking at a specific way that the Higgs breaks down. And this breakdown, it involves another big name in particle physics, the top quark.
Oh, okay. So it's like two for the price of one.
Right.
Tell me more about this top quark connection.
Well, so the Higgs boson, it doesn't just, disappear.
Right.
It decays into other particles.
Mm-hmm.
And what this paper focuses on is when it decays into a pair of top quarks.
So it's like a chain reaction. We're not actually seeing the Higgs, but we're seeing the aftermath of it breaking apart.
You got it. And to actually track this specific decay, they use something called tagging. So picture a detective at a crime scene.
Right. Yeah.
They're looking for clues. But in our case, instead of fingerprints, they're looking for these specific particles called bottom quarks. And these are found within those fat jets.
Bottom quarks. So that's like the smoking gun in our particle physics mystery.
That's a good way to put it. You see, both the Higgs and the top quark, they can decay into these bottom quarks. So finding them together in a fat jet, well, it's a big clue.
Right. But couldn't those bottom quarks come from somewhere else? It's kind of crowded in there, right?
That is the question.
Yeah.
And that's where this research gets even more interesting, because they thought of that too. They came up with two main strategies to be extra sure: the double bottom tag and the triple bottom tag. It's like, how can we be more certain? Let's add another bottom quark.
Right.
And we'll get into those in a bit.
Okay, you've got me hooked on these bottom tags. But how do they work? Are we talking like little name tags on these particles?
Well, not exactly name tags, but I like how you're thinking about it. It really comes down to patterns. So with a double bottom tag, we're essentially looking for two bottom quarks within a single fat jet. You find a pair, it's like those two puzzle pieces fitting together perfectly. Strong evidence they came from the same source, whether that's the Higgs or the top quark.
So two is good, but it doesn't guarantee it's the Higgs. What if they just happen to be in the same place?
Exactly. And that's where, we have to rule out those cosmic coincidences.
Right.
And that's where that triple bottom tab comes in. So remember, we're specifically interested in the Higgs produced alongside a top quark. So on top of those two bottom quarks from the Higgs, we go hunting for a third. And this third one, most likely, it's coming from that top quark.
Yeah.
So it's like we found the matching puzzle pieces, and then we find the third one that just completes the whole picture.
Three bottom quarks from the same event. That's like, I don't know, finding the Higgs' birth certificate or something.
Yeah.
But isn't that incredibly rare?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like finding that, golden ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But when you find it, you are much more certain that, this is what we were looking for.
Right.
The paper actually goes into detail about the pros and cons of each approach.
Okay.
The double bottom tag, it gives you a lot of data. But that triple bottom tag, that's where the confidence comes in.
Right, a classic trade-off. But we are still talking about the LHC here, right? Which you were describing earlier as this, I don't know, just crazy, chaotic mess of particles. How can they even be sure they're seeing the right things, even with these tags?
Well, that is the real challenge.
Yeah.
And, the researchers, they're not shying away from that. Imagine trying to have a conversation like a whisper during a hurricane.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's kind of what it's like trying to find these very specific particle interactions amidst all of that.
So what's the solution? Like earplugs for the detector or...
More like some really, really smart filtering. So they talk about accounting for these things they're called higher order QCD effects. And basically what that means is you've got the strong nuclear force,
Yeah.
holds those quarks together. That force can actually create additional particles that just make the data messier.
Okay.
So it's like trying to put together a puzzle, but someone keeps throwing in extra pieces from a completely different puzzle.
Okay, yeah, I see the problem. Thankfully, though, these researchers seem pretty persistent. They didn't just, point out the problem. It seems like they're coming up with solutions.
Absolutely, yeah. They actually propose a bunch of different ways that we can make those tagging methods even more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
For example, instead of just looking at, the particles inside the jets, they're suggesting that we also look at the angles and the momentum of the jet itself.
Okay.
It's a bit like if you're that detective and you're not just looking at the footprints, you're also looking at, like, which way were they walking, how fast were they going, just that extra level of detail.
Right. It's like becoming like a particle detective or something.
Exactly. And, they're constantly refining these tools, these techniques, and that's what makes all this research so exciting. Because it's not just about this one discovery, it's about creating these new ways of seeing the universe.
And those new ways of seeing, I mean, that's got to be what leads to those big, like, groundbreaking physics discoveries, right?
Exactly. Yeah, this kind of research, this could be huge in helping us answer some really, really big questions in physics.
Mm-hmm.
What is dark matter? What is dark energy?
Right.
Why is gravity so much weaker compared to, all those other fundamental forces? Like we have this map of the universe and big chunks of it, they're just blank.
Okay, yeah. So by studying the Higgs, we could fill in those blanks, potentially. That's incredible. Speaking of incredible, the paper also mentioned something about boosted Higgs bosons. What in the world does that mean? Does it have like a little rocket pack or something?
Yeah. Oh, I wish it were that simple. But you're on the right track thinking about speed. Imagine a particle that's had way too much coffee,
Okay.
and it's just like zipping around close to the speed of light.
Okay.
That's a boosted particle.
Okay, so we've got this super speedy particle. Why do particle physicists get so excited about that? So we've got this super speedy particle. Why do particle physicists get so excited about that?
Well, imagine you're trying to read a message, like it's written on a rubber band.
Okay.
And the more you stretch that rubber band, the harder it gets to read, right?
Right, yeah.
But then you let go, and suddenly, boom, those letters, they snap back together. Easy to read. That's kind of what happens with a boosted Higgs or a top quark.
Wait, so the faster it goes, the easier it is to see. That seems backwards.
It does. It does. But when these particles are boosted, they're decay products. Those bottom quarks, remember?
Right, yeah.
Those get squished together, so all their energy, it's concentrated in a smaller space. Makes the signal much clearer.
So it's like you're focusing a blurry image. The boosted particle gives us a better look at those, what were they again? Bottom quarks, right?
Exactly. And the paper suggests that focusing on these boosted particles could help us learn a lot more about the Higgs. It's like getting a better magnifying glass for our particle detective work.
Now, that is cool. But, I mean, if it's so useful, why not just boost all the particles? What's the catch?
Well, there's always a catch, right?
Mm.
Boosting particles to those speeds takes a ton of energy, like even more than the LHC can handle right now.
Wow.
But there might be future colliders.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger, way more powerful, that might be able to do it.
It's like we're about to go on this amazing journey, but we need a better spaceship to get there.
There you go. And that's part of what this paper is getting at. It's not just about what we can do today. It's about, okay, what if? What if we could study these particles even more closely? What would we find?
Those are some pretty big what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
So as we wrap up here, is there one thing you really hope listeners take away from this whole thing?
I think the biggest takeaway is that, science is all about pushing the limits, asking these bold questions, even if we don't know the answers yet. This research, it's a perfect example. You've got these mind-blowing ideas, but also this meticulous detail work. And it's all to understand the universe just a little bit better.
And sometimes those big what-if questions lead to the biggest discoveries. Well, thanks to you, our expert, for breaking all of that down for us.
Happy to do it.
And to you, the listeners, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. And we'll catch you next time.